What is up, everybody? I'm Kyle Benjamin. He's Tanner Marlar. We're back for another edition of Post Race Conversations live, this time after the Enjoy Illinois 300. I do appreciate the alliteration there from the fine folks at Worldwide Technology Raceway. Tanner, this one looked briefly like it was going to be the kind of race that you and I love that no one else does. It was going to be a fuel mileage contest right there to the end.
Yeah, and I think we've gotten not necessarily used to it, but it's good to have a refresher. Like you said, you and I think at this point are the only two people on planet Earth that still enjoy that type of racing. But it was exciting all the way through. Even and that's not to say we don't enjoy the type of racing we saw today, because you and I were talking while the race was going on that this was fun. This was exciting all the way through, flag to flag. I enjoyed this.
I think it had a couple things going for it. It wasn't screaming hot. There's tire wear at that track. It gets weathered. I don't know when the last time. I think it was probably repaved before IndyCar went back there, which would have been 8 or 9 years ago at this point. So 2016, when they first started testing there, and it's multi-groove, so guys can race side by side. Now we did see, once a car got out front, it was very hard to pass, which is it's just something I think we all need to accept at the moment with this race car, is that unless something happens, you got a hard job of catching the guy in front of you and getting past him. But further back, racing was good. I am going to make a bold prediction. I think a Toyota wins the championship this year. Whether that's Denny Hamlin or Chase Briscoe, I think those two, granted, we're 2 races into a long playoff run here, but the Gibbs car is coming out and dominating. Briscoe took him to the woodshed last weekend at Darlington. And then, between Hamlin and Bubba Wallace, they led almost 150 laps today between those two cars. And Wallace didn't get his ill-timed caution from Ty Gibbs. I think ruined his gamble to win it on fuel. But I think they had 6 cars in the top 10.
Yeah, and I talked about it a little bit in my column, 4 Burning Questions, this week, in the sense that it really is best case scenario for Toyota right now, because you've got both what I would call the past, the ghost of NASCAR past, present, and future, all really in with a shot for Joe Gibbs Racing of winning this thing. Christopher Bell has a great history of coming on late in these seasons and racing his way into championship for contention. Denny Hamlin, obviously, we're going to make a bit of a prediction here. I think this is the year Denny Hamlin gets it done. He's looked really, really good in other years. I don't know if he's ever looked this determined. I think that he's, had years where he's won as many races and has wanted it, but it just feels like this is a different Denny Hamlin. I think that, and I think part of it is all the outside noise. I think that part of it is there's so much going on outside of the walls, right? Outside of the racetrack, that it's just lit a certain kind of fire underneath him and that team and everyone around him. And it's a completely different atmosphere. And I likened it a little bit to what we've seen out of Penske the last couple of years, in that when the playoffs hit, they're a different animal. And right now, Joe Gibbs Racing and anybody running a Toyota badge is a much different animal than the rest of the field.
Yeah, John Hunter Nemechek comes immediately to mind for a guy he's back-to-back top 6 finishes. He was in contention last week to at least factor into the finish, and then comes home and was up front all day long. It's not like he fluked into a 6th. He was up front all day long. As was Christopher Bell, a very quiet 7th for the 20 car. And then, Ty Gibbs mixed it up a little bit, comes home 10th. Joe Gibbs Racing, I think they are poised to make a statement. Now, you can't really count out, I think, Hendrick. Last weekend, they were out to lunch at Darlington, very unlike that team and organization. They were up front today. Strategy didn't quite work out the way they wanted, right? They had some they were caught out by some cautions. but things play out a little differently. Larson, Byron was ahead of that group that was trying to stretch it on fuel. So without that late caution, he might have cycled his way up there. So we'll see. I mean, there's again a lot of racing left to happen. Bristol next weekend is going to be interesting to see who makes it, who doesn't. The four guys kind of on the outside looking in at this point. SVG, Alex Bowman, Josh Berry. Poor Josh Berry. I mean, talk about a guy who's got, without bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. And then Austin Dillon. All four of those drivers, you've still got a chance. Something crazy could happen next week. One of those guys gets a win. Who knows? That's why you line them up and go. We can prognosticate all we want, but at the end of the day, you got to go. You got to go race. But SVG and Alex Bowman finishing 25th and 26th today. That's not going to get you very far.
No, and I want to talk a little bit about the Hendrick. You talked about them being out to lunch last week, and I agree. But I think it's just been Murphy's Law with that team this season. And when that happens, it tends to go all the way through the end of an entire season. We've mentioned it several times before. And I think one of the through lines since I've started doing PRC with you, Kyle, is, man, Hendrick just doesn't seem like they've got it this year. And whatever the case may be, whether it's, like you said, a bad pit strategy, things just not playing out the way that you would kind of hope if you're in that building, they just aren't working. I don't know if it's a technical thing. It, again, could just be Murphy's Law. Everything that can or could go wrong seems to have gone wrong for Hendrick this season. But I look at next week as a better opportunity out of those drivers that you just mentioned, the four that are on the outside looking in. I look at it as Josh Berry's got the best opportunity out of all of them. As far as the type of track that he enjoys and he is best at, and then on top of that, the equipment, I think Josh Berry, and obviously he is in a must-win situation, but out of those four, I think he's the one that I would pick to win it.
Yeah, for sure. He's 45 points below the cut line, which would, you can't. I think at this point he can't point his way into it. He would have to win.
He has got to win. It is a win or be knocked out for Josh Berry. And if you're gonna have to win your way in, I think if you ask Josh Berry to pick, he's gonna pick a short track, obviously.
Yes.
And Bristol Night Race, big atmosphere. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I will not pick Josh Berry to win that race next week. But if you're Josh Berry and you're in the situation, you'd probably rather go to this track than any other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think next weekend though, if you're going to pick a favorite, any of the guys in the top 10, just in general, in the today's finishing order last week. I mean, shoot, does John Hunter Nemechek get his first win at Bristol?
It's possible, very possible. I'm going to find it hard not to go with Denny again, based off of one, he ran really well there earlier in the year, and his wins have come in bunches, it seems, and his good runs have come in bunches. So right now, I may look at him again. We'll have to see. Again. There may be something who knows? We'll see. But I like him. I like him for this race, and I like him going forward.
I think it's his, at this point, it's his championship to lose. And I'm maybe like way out in front of my skis on this, but thinking about, he's got 5 wins, could easily have 10 or 12 this season. But a number of things went wrong while they were leading, last week. I think he had the car to beat, and had a couple issues, ran into trouble at Daytona. A lot of other things like this throughout the season where they just, they were the fast, top 2 car, pit road issue, getting caught up in somebody else's accident. He could be flirting with double-digit wins on the season, but certainly the strongest out of all of them, so far. But I know we touched on Hendrick struggling a little bit, but Chase Elliott did finish 3rd.
Yeah, Chase Elliott did have a good day. I thought he did a really good job holding off Ryan Blaney there at the end. I was, with about 20, 25 to go, I was watching the leaderboard and I saw, well, Ryan Blaney's on fresh tires, and I mean fresh tires, full tank of fuel. I could see him getting up there and challenging, and if a restart happened, maybe that was the case. Hamlin obviously drove away, but Chase Elliott held Ryan Blaney off, a fast Ryan Blaney off, there for the last 10 laps or so. He had a really good race today.
He did. So did Joey Logano, who kind of came out of nowhere. Penske, though, historically very good at this track. Uh, but Logano's been kind of quiet all season. And then all of a sudden he rattles off a fifth in the playoffs. So, he's 10th right now. He's 21 points above the cut line. Again, you're going into Bristol, anything can happen. I think, that's certainly the hope that NASCAR has, to have in Bristol as a cutoff race, that there's going to be chaos. But I think anybody who's watched, this car race at that track and watch, frankly, racing at that track for the last 18 years,
you're going to know what to expect.
It's not 1996. Nobody's getting dumped. The rattle the cage era. Though Bristol became a victim, I think, of its own marketing.
Yeah, 100%. A victim of its own marketing and a victim of this car. You and I were very vocal about this earlier in the year when we had the first race at Bristol. I think it was on a PRC where I was working the actual race, and I said, for the life of me, with the racing we watch here, year in and year out at this point, do not understand why we don't only run one race. Yeah, we don't only just run the night race and forget the spring race. And it feels like at that point, the nostalgia of it and the atmosphere of the track could sustain that kind of reputation, no matter what the actual at-track and on-track product looked like. And I think running two races a year there, both of them having very similar styles of racing and winding up being very similar races, is really, really hurting that track.
For sure. We got a number of folks commenting on the YouTube chat. I want to bring some of those up here. Question from Larry. Will the softer tires help at Bristol Saturday night? Maybe. It's cool here in East Tennessee. I'm about 65 miles from the track. Temp's going to be in the 70s all week. I mean, it's gorgeous early September here in East Tennessee. So you could see something similar to what we had in the springtime a couple of years ago, where those cool temps and that tire kind of combined to make racing really good. Remains to be seen. I certainly hope so.
And we learned obviously again in that spring race that the temperature at that track, being that the surface being what it is, the temperature plays a huge factor into what the racing is going to be like and how the tires react. I remember we were all concerned early on in the spring race that, hey, are these things going to start shredding again? But once the track temperature really kind of raised and got to an optimal kind of level, they really didn't struggle with it at all. So I think the softer tire will play a bit of an effect. It's hard to say without knowing exactly what the weather is going to be, exactly what that'll be. But I would wager midweek we've got a better idea of how that softer compound is going to affect the racing. Thanks, Larry.
For sure. We haven't touched on the Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson whoopsie-daisy, which, Larson just
That's one thing to call it. That's one thing to call it. It's a whoopsie-daisy.
That's, all due respect to Kyle Larson, who, he's very, very talented. He seems to find himself in these issues from time to time where he just overdrives it. It's really all you can say. He went in there a little too hot. Spun Blaney. They both rallied and recovered. Blaney comes home P4. Seemed to be okay. There was they did discuss the issue after the race. There were no fisticuffs, no yelling, no shouting. They were laughing and joking. It was definitely a racing deal for sure. But I think Larson probably wants that one back.
I think that's a much different conversation if they both don't rally. And here's the thing. It took Ryan Blaney all race to rally. That last push he had to get up to fourth was the end of what was really a from the moment they made contact to the end of the race was a race-long battle for Ryan Blaney to climb back up through the field. And I think that would probably be a much different conversation post-race if they didn't both finish well, but they did. Everything's probably fine. But yeah, I think Larson definitely, one, wishes he would have had that back, and two, knew exactly what he did.
Yeah. And there, people are probably thinking, oh, there's, going to Bristol next week. Does Blaney get payback? I don't think so.
No.
I think, he might make life a little challenging for the 5. Should the opportunity present itself, he might run him up the track a little bit. But, at this point, why risk the rest of your playoffs?
No point.
No point at all.
And these are two guys that have been here before, right? That have been in this position that know that there's a long postseason ahead. I mean, we are by no means very close to the end of this playoff. There's a lot of races still left. So you want to build on every good finish that you can with another. Consistency is the name of the game in this playoff format, and finishing up front. And I think they both will wind up doing that at Bristol without causing each other too much pain.
Yeah, for sure. They're both Cup champions. They both know what's at stake, and they know how to race. And they're, again, Bristol. We could hope Bristol is going to be the Bristol that we all grew up with, and that NASCAR and SMI want it to be. I don't think that's going to happen. Could be crazy, but I certainly doubt it. Looking at the rest of the top 15, decent day for the guys at Spire again, 14th and 15th for McDowell and Hocevar. Tyler Reddick struggled a little bit today. You got some playoff drivers: Chastain, SVG, Bowman, 24th, 25th, and 26th. Daniel Suarez probably, can't wait for this season to be over. Again, another team that's just had terrible luck. Shout out though to Zane Smith, who at one point in the race was running inside the top 5. So a good early day for that. That team comes home 33rd, and the last car running today. So I guess they had issues somewhere, but 3 cars dominated this one. Denny Hamlin led 75, Bubba Wallace led 73, Kyle Larson led 52, and Chase Briscoe, the last driver with double-digit laps, led at 15. So,
and of note, Denny Hamlin with today's best lap, 32.94. That is moving. We said he had the car to beat all day. Most certainly did. Only other driver under 33 seconds was Chase Briscoe, turning a 32.98.
He and Bubba Wallace matched lap times there. Kyle Larson looks like he had a 32.97.
Yes, I'm seeing it. Yeah, he did.
So, but your four best cars with the 4 fastest laps. I would wager those laps were all set while they were leading.
In clean air.
So again,
clean air played a big factor today. Clean air and downforce, obviously, with this package, has always played a big factor, and it will continue to do so. And again, I just love this race today. I thought it was the multiple grooves is what really helped. I mean, is what really opened up this racetrack and continues to open up this racetrack. And it's a reason the series keeps coming back to it. I mean, it puts on good racing, and it's a little bit different.
It is, and it's one of those places where I think they should have 2 races because the racing is good. How you fit it into the schedule, I don't know. I personally don't want to go to the St. Louis area in the springtime. I've also been there in the summer for IndyCar, and it is 1,000 degrees. It's not warm. It's hot. So how you would stack 2 races there, I don't know. I think it's a great playoff track. Obviously, the crowd was a little sparse today. Some of the aerial shots there were. It doesn't seat that many, and there were still plenty of good seats available, which is a shame. But the track's not. It's not close to downtown. It's not really in a great location. Unfortunately, it puts on amazing racing. No matter what series races there, the racing is good, and the facility is first class. They do a great job running that event every time I've been there. Everything's clean, everything's tidy. The part you get in and out, the parking lot, fast. It's well run, so it's a shame to see that there weren't it wasn't a sellout crowd, because I think folks missed a good one.
Yeah, I do. I think they missed a really good race. Um, uh, and I don't know what you do to get more fans to that area. Again, like you said, as far as being by the metro, track's not at a wonderful spot for that. Not many are. There are very few that are in dream locations in the middle of a metro. Um, I I don't know what that has to look like for St. Louis. You would think that with everything else that's not going on there, that it would be a little more packed. Unfortunately, not the case. I don't know what kind of work has to be done in that community to get more interest in that, other than a lot more promotion into the suburbs of St. Louis and not as much into the metro.
For sure, and it's a challenging weekend. I think regardless of where the race was held this weekend, it's the opening weekend of the NFL. Baseball's you're in the last stretch there. Probably a lot of Cardinals fans were at home watching the Redbirds. So certainly some challenges there, but they do. I'm watching post race stuff here. They've got a really nice victory lane set up. Fans are there. Great facility. So it was a good race. It's the kind of race you and I enjoy watching and enjoy talking about. So we'll see what how they line them up and stack them up next week at Bristol. I don't anticipate kind of a similar type of race. I think we know what we're going to get next week under the lights.
There will be a race, and they will go in circles, and someone will win it.
That is very, very true. It's going to be It's going to be a race of the season. Absolutely. So, hey, if you're still with us, we appreciate you being here. Check out all our coverage of everything NASCAR, Xfinity Series, our IndyCar coverage for the season is wrapped up. But head to frontstretch.com for all the post-race columns, thoughts, everything from our team at the track. You can also head to our YouTube channel for a lot of driver interviews, stuff you didn't see on the broadcast. Tanner, a pleasure as always, my friend. We will not be here next week because the race is late and we're old. So we'll let the track team handle post-race conversations. But we will return in 2 weeks after New Hampshire.
That one should be fun.
That one should be fun. Multi-groove racetrack that's flat and fast. And if there's rain, they will have the rain tire. So we'll see.
Spicy.
All right. We appreciate y'all being here, Tanner. It's fun as always, my friend. I will see you next time.
All right. Take it easy,
I can figure out where my cursor is to end the stream. I've lost it on one of my monitors.
It's here somewhere.
There we go. All right. Now we're done. See ya.